Don't wait for a siren, you won't hear one. By the time you realize America's collapsing, you'll be surrounded by empty shelves, silent phones, and neighbors clawing for food. You think you'll have time. The average U.S. city has just 3 days of food, total, before it all runs out. Over 62% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings, and 72% live paycheck to paycheck. When the grid fails, the trucks stop or panic sets in. There is no cushion, no help, just you. And the brutal truth, most people won't die from bombs, bullets, or the weather. They'll die from making one wrong decision at the worst possible time, because they didn't know the silent rules, the unspoken principles that decide who lives, who suffers, and who vanishes. You want to survive? Forget the gear lists. These are the 11 silent rules of survival in America. And breaking even one could cost you everything. Let's start from the bottom. Rule number 11. Your community is either your lifeline or your trap. You want a brutal truth that nobody wants to admit. Most American neighborhoods are not built for survival. In fact, they're set up like traps. Suburban America, with its cul-de-sacs, single points of entry, and artificial dependency on supply chains, can turn into a nightmare when systems go down. And the worst part is, people don't realize it until it's way too late. Community matters, but not in the Instagram neighborhood BBQ kind of way. I'm talking about functional trust-based survival alliances. Who in your area has a well? Who knows first aid? Who's ex-military? Who's a liability? You need to know these things now, because when things go sideways, your zip code becomes your reality, and you better hope it's not full of people who are going to panic, turn desperate, or turn on you. Most American towns and cities are 3 missed meals away from chaos. That's not hyperbole. It's backed by data from FEMA and the DHS, who've studied disaster behavior for decades. 48 hours into a blackout, crime spikes. At 72 hours, emergency services are overwhelmed. At 1 week, you're on your own, and your community either rallies or tears itself apart. This is where Rule 11 comes in. You need to build alliances before you need them. That means being discreet but observant. Who's got a garden? Who's always at the range? Who's already prepping quietly? Start small. Offer a favor. Strike up a conversation about storm prepping. Build rapport. Because when the lights go out, you won't be fighting the storm. You'll be negotiating with the people on your block. And if you haven't laid the groundwork, you're just another outsider behind a locked door, hoping no one tries to kick it in. Rule 11 is simple. Community is either your biggest survival advantage or your biggest mistake. Choose wisely. Rule number 10. Survival isn't fair, and it never will be. There's this fantasy that survival plays out like a meritocracy. You put in the work. You get the reward. You train, you prep, and the universe cuts you a break when the world goes sideways. I hate to be the one to say it, but that's a lie. In America, survival isn't fair. It's not about what you deserve. It's about what you control. It's about how fast you adapt, how quietly you move, and how willing you are to accept harsh truths while everyone else is still clinging to normalcy. Some of the most prepared people I've ever met will still get wiped out because they live in the wrong zip code, near the wrong freeway, or next to the wrong neighbor. That's not their fault, but it is reality. When the Texas grid collapsed in 2021, the people who made it through weren't the ones with the best flashlights. They were the ones who understood that no one was coming to save them. That moment, that shift from "someone will fix this" to "I need to fix this," is the line between victims and survivors. And here's the kicker. This country is built on systems that don't care about you. Just look at how FEMA handled Hurricane Maria. Look at how long it took to get basic relief to East Palestine, Ohio after the train derailment. When it hits the fan, no one is airdropping help into your backyard. If you think your taxes buy you a rescue, you've already lost. That's why Rule 10 is about mindset. You need to stop expecting fairness. The person who screams loudest isn't going to get the last gallon of gas. The person who planned ahead, got there first, and kept their mouth shut will. This isn't about being ruthless. It's about being real. Understand the game you're playing. Train harder than you think you need to. Prep more than seems reasonable. And never ever expect that you'll be rewarded just because you did the right thing. Survival is a rigged game, and if you don't play like it is, you'll lose. Rule number 9. Don't just plan for collapse, plan for the return. This one's going to mess with some people's heads. Preppers love to think about collapse like it's the end of the story. The grid goes down, cities burn, and boom. You're living off the land in a permanent Mad Max fantasy. But real collapse, real disaster, it doesn't stay broken forever. America doesn't dissolve into dust. It mutates. It reorganizes. It rebuilds. The problem is almost no one prepares for that phase. Everyone focuses on surviving day 1. But what about day 200? What about the moment when things start to stabilize? But not in your favor. Let me give you a hard example. After Katrina, the government didn't just vanish. It came back with rules, checkpoints, mandatory evacuations, and red tape that made it harder for self-reliant people to recover. Same thing in Paradise, California after the fires. And guess who got hit the hardest? The people who didn't think about paperwork, who didn't document anything, who couldn't prove they had title to their land. Survival isn't just about gear and grit, it's about re-entry. It's about having backup ID, paper maps, hard copies of critical documents. It's about understanding that when the new rules come in, you don't want to be on the wrong side of them. And here's the really wild part. If you're too visible during the chaos, you will be remembered during the cleanup. That guy with the big generator, the one who ran the neighborhood fuel stash, he might look like a local hero on day 5. But on day 180, he's the guy the new system wants to audit, investigate, or regulate. So yes, get through the crisis, but plan like a spy. Keep your presence low. Keep your footprint light. Have a clean digital trail. Don't post online about how you outsmarted the collapse, because someone's writing names down, even if it's 6 months later. Rule 9 is about long-term survival. Collapse is temporary. The aftermath, that's where the real game begins. Rule number 8. The first aid kit isn't enough. You are the medic now. Most people check the box. They buy a cheap first aid kit, toss it in the closet or the bug-out bag, and call it good. But let me be blunt. That kit won't save anyone. In a real emergency, when EMS is 10 hours away or not coming at all, you are no longer a bystander. You're the medic. And if your training stopped at how to put on a Band-Aid, someone you care about could die because of that. This is the silent rule most preppers skip. Medical knowledge isn't optional anymore. It's critical infrastructure. Let's look at the numbers. According to the American College of Emergency Physicians, in a high-stress scenario, most preventable deaths happen from blood loss, airway obstruction, or untreated shock. Those are fixable problems, if you know what you're doing. But in most American households, no one has even practiced CPR in the last 10 years. Fewer than 15% of people can use a tourniquet correctly under pressure. And don't even get me started on antibiotics. People stock them, sure, but do they know how to use them? When to administer? What side effects to watch for? What interactions matter? I took a trauma course back in 2018. Best $400 I ever spent. It taught me how to stop arterial bleeding, manage a collapsed lung, treat severe burns, and improvise splints from junk I had in my garage. Not because I plan on playing hero, but because I don't want to be helpless. My med kit isn't a red pouch with bandages. It's a mobile emergency room. I've got chest seals, clotting agents, burn gel, SAM splints, pressure dressings, and yes, antibiotics with instructions printed out and laminated. When the hospitals are full or offline or inaccessible, you are the one who has to stabilize the injury. The ambulance isn't coming. And that little first aid kit you bought at Walmart, it might help with a paper cut, but it won't stop your kid from bleeding out. Rule number 8 is the line between life and death. Become the medic before you need to be the medic, because when the world goes dark, your knowledge is your emergency room. Rule number 7. Your phone is a liability, not a lifeline. You're going to hate this one. But in a real collapse, your phone, the thing you treat like a security blanket, is probably the most dangerous object in your pocket. Not because it doesn't work, but because it works just enough to give you false confidence, leak your location, and feed you misinformation that can get you killed. And that's right. Rule 7 is that your phone isn't a lifeline. It's a tracking device, a distraction machine, and a disinformation terminal, all rolled into one. Let's start with location. Even in airplane mode, most smartphones continue to ping GPS satellites, and under certain legal loopholes, emergency services, or worse, bad actors, can track that data. In 2020, the New York Times broke a story about how commercial companies were using anonymized cell data to follow the movements of millions of Americans during COVID lockdowns. That same infrastructure, it doesn't go offline in a blackout. If the towers are up, you are a blip on someone's radar. But it gets worse. Let's talk information. When disasters strike, most people turn to their phones for news, guidance, or reassurance, and that's how they walk into traps. Misinformation spreads 6 times faster than truth on Twitter. And when the power grid's flickering, guess what people believe? The last update they saw before the signal cut. The enemy in a disaster isn't just chaos, it's confusion. That text message from a neighbor might not be real. That GPS route might lead you right into a lockdown zone. And that government alert? It might have been spoofed. So what do? First, learn to function without it. Have a physical map. Know your routes. Practice going off-grid for a day, then a weekend. No phone, no signal, no apps. Second, if you must use a phone, use a Faraday bag until you need it. That kills all signals and prevents passive tracking. Third, download critical intel before the collapse. Offline maps, first aid PDFs, comms plans, local emergency frequencies. Fourth, and this is the kicker, treat every ping as a flare. Someone could be watching. Rule 7 is brutal. In survival, the tool you trust the most might be the one that betrays you first. Rule number 6, comfort will kill you. Here's what nobody wants to say out loud. Comfort is a drug, and Americans are addicted. Heated homes, soft beds, DoorDash at 9 p.m. And it's all fine, until it's gone. The moment the temperature drops below 30, the power cuts out, and the heater's silent. That's when the withdrawals start. Cold isn't just uncomfortable, it's deadly. In fact, hypothermia kills more people in America every year than floods and hurricanes combined. Not because it sneaks up on you, but because we've lost our tolerance for discomfort. I'm not just talking about cold. I'm talking about all comfort, hunger, fatigue, boredom, pain. These are sensations most people in this country avoid like the plague. And that's exactly why, in a crisis, they fall apart within 48 hours. Their mental will collapses the moment they have to sleep on a hard floor or miss 2 meals. They panic, they lash out, or worse, they give up. But discomfort is the default state of survival. If you're trying to maintain comfort in a grid-down scenario, you're wasting energy on the wrong game. Want proof? Look at the homeless. It's uncomfortable, but hear me out. A large portion of that population survives harsh winters, scrounges food, avoids violence, and lives in constant discomfort. They're experts at urban survival, and most of them didn't take a single tactical class. That should tell you something. Survival isn't about skill alone. It's about resilience to suffering. If you can't function when you're cold, hungry, tired, or in pain, you won't function when it counts. This is why I started what I call discomfort drills. Once a month I pick a weekend and I suffer on purpose. I sleep outside. I eat bland food. I don't use heating or AC. I do hard manual labor on an empty stomach. Why? Because I want to know I can still think clearly when my body hates me. I want that edge when everyone else is cracking. I want to build psychological immunity to pain. That's what Rule 6 is about. It's not about embracing suffering for fun. It's about training yourself to function inside discomfort, because that's where survival actually happens. Rule number 5. Your stuff will betray you. This one hurts. You spent thousands on gear. Your shelves are packed. You've got freeze-dried food, a solar generator, a bulletproof vest, and 3 water filters. You feel ready. But here's the gut punch. Most people's gear will fail them when they need it most. Not because the gear is bad, but because they haven't trained with it. Rule 5 is simple. If you haven't field-tested your equipment in stress, chaos, or fatigue, it might as well not exist. You ever try starting a fire with frozen hands? Ever filter swamp water at night while someone's crying behind you? Ever try reloading a weapon in the dark while your heart's pounding? Your gear doesn't work like it does on YouTube. It fails, it breaks, it gets lost. Or worse, it confuses you. In Hurricane Sandy, I met a guy who had one of those $300 military-style survival stoves. Problem was, he never practiced using it. Took him an hour to set it up. The whole family was shivering while he fumbled with parts. On day 2, it stopped working because he used the wrong fuel. Or think about water filters. Do you know how many Americans bought life straws during COVID? Millions. But ask them where the intake line goes or how to backflush a Sawyer filter, and you'll get blank stares. That's not prepping. That's hoarding comfort. And in a survival scenario, false confidence is more dangerous than no gear at all. That's why every single piece of gear I buy, I test under stress. I put myself in situations where it has to work. I've filtered puddle water. I've cooked in a snowstorm. I've set up tents with one arm in a sling. Why? Because I don't want to learn during the collapse. That's the worst possible time. You need muscle memory. You need gear that you can use blindfolded. You need to know exactly where everything is, what fails under pressure, and what you can improvise if it does. Rule 5 is harsh but fair. Your gear isn't your savior. It's your tool set. And if you haven't trained like your life depends on it, then it doesn't. Rule number 4, money still matters after the collapse. Everyone loves to say, money will be worthless in a collapse, but that's only half true, and half-truths get people killed. Rule number 4 is this: money doesn't disappear. It transforms. In a full-blown grid-down or economic collapse, traditional currency might lose value, but barter, black markets, hard goods, and alternate currencies explode in importance. If you're not planning for economic survival, you're planning to beg. Let me break it down. In Venezuela during the 2016 collapse, people with cash couldn't buy food because shelves were empty, but people with cigarettes, soap, rice, and gasoline, they could get anything they wanted. The U.S. isn't immune to that. You think the dollar is invincible? It's lost over 97% of its value since 1913, and with inflation climbing year over year, stimulus printing, and record debt, your dollars aren't going to save you when the shelves are bare and the gas pumps dry. So what does money look like in survival mode? It's skills, it's resources, it's tradable items that everyone needs but few people store. I'm talking about antibiotics, lighters, menstrual products, razor blades, over-the-counter meds, batteries, even alcohol and instant coffee. These aren't just useful, they're currency. And don't overlook silver and gold. Not because you'll be buying bread with Krugerrands, but because in long-term collapse, people revert to value stores. A 1-ounce silver coin might feed you for a week if paper money means nothing. But here's the critical part. You need to know the economy of desperation. What are people willing to trade when they're scared? What will be too valuable to give up? That's why I keep a barter kit separate from my main supplies. Stuff I can trade without risking my core stockpile. That's also why I've spent the last 2 years learning fix-it skills. Because if you can repair a generator, patch a roof, or sharpen a blade, you're not poor in a collapse. You're wealthy. Rule 4 is this: the economy never dies. It just mutates. And if you're not holding the right kind of currency, you're already broke. Rule number 3. Your bug-out plan is a suicide. Note: if you wait too long, let's crush a dangerous myth. Your bug-out plan is not a backup plan. It's a first-hour decision, or it's a suicide note. You'd be shocked how many people I talk to who say, if things get really bad, I'll just bug out. As if the roads will be clear, the gas will flow, and roving mobs of the unprepared won't be thinking exactly the same thing. Rule 3 is about this brutal fact. If you wait to leave until you're sure you need to, you've already waited too long. Look at wildfire evacuation data from California. Time after time, people stay just a little too long, thinking the fire wouldn't reach them. In Paradise, CA, over 80 people burned alive in their cars trying to escape. Why? Because everyone left at once. Traffic gridlocked. The fire didn't care about anyone's bug-out bags or tactical plans. It just consumed. The same applies to hurricanes, flood zones, riots. If you think the event itself is what kills people, you're missing it. It's the delay. So how do you fix this? You don't just have a plan. You have triggers, non-negotiable signals that tell you to go, even if you feel silly or premature. For me, if the National Guard rolls into my area, I'm gone. If major supply chains collapse in a 200-mile radius, I'm gone. If law enforcement pulls back or declares curfews in my town, I'm gone. No questions, no second guessing. Because the window doesn't stay open long and it never reopens. And listen closely. Your bug-out route matters just as much as your timing. Have 3 different routes and test them. Not on a sunny Sunday afternoon, but during rush hour, during storms, during construction. Find choke points. Know which bridges, tunnels, or intersections are guaranteed bottlenecks. Have caches if you can. stash fuel, food, or medical supplies along your escape corridor, and know how to get off the GPS grid. Because guess what? Everyone else's phone will lead them into the same kill zones. Rule 3 is this. If your escape plan isn't fast, flexible, and pre-triggered, it's not a plan. It's wishful thinking dressed up as strategy. Rule number 2. The collapse doesn't come with a headline. Everyone's waiting for the moment, the broadcast, the tweet, the press conference where some grim-faced official looks into the camera and says, "This is it. The system has collapsed." But let me break it to you. That moment never comes. Rule 2 is maybe the most dangerous truth of them all. The collapse doesn't come with a headline. It comes with silence, with hesitation, with ordinary people going to bed one night thinking tomorrow will be the same. In America, we've built a culture of distraction. We watch the Dow Jones like it's a weather report, assuming as long as it's green, we're safe. Meanwhile, the food banks are overwhelmed. 63% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Credit card debt just blew past $1.3 trillion, the highest in U.S. history. The average family can't absorb a $500 emergency, and yet we still treat this like normal. That's how collapse begins. Not with explosions, but with quiet breakdowns everyone ignores until it's too late. Look at Argentina, Sri Lanka, Lebanon. Their collapses didn't start with a bang. They started with fuel shortages, rolling blackouts, banks limiting withdrawals. In Sri Lanka, people didn't realize they were in full collapse until soldiers started shooting at protesters. By then, the game was already over. And America? We're following the same script. Look at the 2023 baby formula shortage, the diesel supply scare, the fertilizer crisis. These were dry runs, and the average American slept through them. So what do? You build your early warning system. You stop trusting headlines and start watching indicators. You track shipping volumes, rail freight declines, food basket inflation, and municipal debt defaults. You don't wait for the media to validate your instincts. If you see too many coincidences happening at once, banks failing, weather extremes, cyber attacks, power grid fluctuations, you don't wait, you act. Rule 2 is this. If you wait for a CNN headline to tell you the collapse has arrived, you'll be staring at a screen that's already gone black. Rule number 1. Nobody's coming. You're it. This is the rule that silences the room. The rule that makes people look down, shift uncomfortably, and say, "That can't be right." But I'm telling you, it is. Rule number 1. Nobody's coming. Not FEMA. Not your mayor. Not your favorite influencer. Not even your extended family. When things really go bad in this country, you are it. The end of the line. The last light on. The only plan that matters. And the people who can't stomach that, the ones still hoping a convoy of help is just over the hill, they are exactly the ones who freeze up when the moment comes. You want to know what real survival psychology looks like? It's the man in Ukraine who dug an underground shelter and fed his neighborhood. It's the single mom in Maui who didn't wait for rescue but packed her kids in a raft and moved. These people didn't feel ready. They were ready because they didn't expect anyone else to do it for them. Here in the U.S., dependency is bred into our DNA. School trains you to wait for permission. Jobs train you to wait for orders. Entertainment trains you to wait for a savior. And every government agency counts on that instinct. Why? Because a passive population is an obedient one. But when collapse hits, whether it's a natural disaster, cyber attack, financial implosion, or full-blown civil disorder, the truth rips through everything. If you haven't prepared, no one is going to carry you. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be ready enough to stand on your own when the rest of the world turns to panic. That means food, water, power, defense, comms, and knowledge. But it also means one thing even more important: accountability. The moment you realize that you, not the cops, not the EMTs, not the system, are the last line of defense for your family, your home, your values, that's when you become unshakable. So I'll say it one last time. Rule number 1. Nobody's coming. You are the rescue. You are the fallback. You are the cavalry. And if you're not, then for the people depending on you, there is no one.